Yep.
Welcome to Full
All right,
Scope,
good.
a podcast with two guys in their 20s, giving their perspective on the games that we love and the story behind it all. I'm your host, Wayne Burns, along with my counterpart, Savon Morris. How's it going?
It's going pretty good, man.
That's good. And tonight we're joined by a special guest once again, Micah Mcdonald, a former high school and college classmate of mine. He's been on numerous times. I think the last time we had you on, it was for the finals preview.
Right.
But thanks for being back on, man.
Hey, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, to start it off tonight, dealing with the Russell Westbrook trade, Houston gets Westbrook and they give up Chris Paul, um, and I believe they also get like two future first round picks. OKC does, and this is a trade where there were always rumors that Houston was interested in Westbrook and kind of having the pairing of him and Harden, which they once had in OKC, and there were obviously the fiery storylines about the Chris Paul and Harden relationship getting kind of becoming heated. Um, but this is an from just a point guard standpoint, this is a significant upgrade in terms of they get a younger guy, um, who's still in the prime of his career, um, you know, one of the best guards in the league. But there's also the question about the fit and both guys being ball dominant, and who's going to have to give up more in terms of taking a back seat to the other. But Michael, what were your initial thoughts on the trade and kind of like how do you think it can work?
Well, I mean, it was definitely kind of unexpected. It was something that, I mean, we have been waiting for the Kawhi decision and all these other decisions. So this kind of was really on the back burner of that. But I think it's a really interesting trade. I think these guys can still work together. Um, as we know them in OKC, James Harden was a six man. So
Right.
there's definitely an upgraded role there. But we have to remember that Russell Westbrook led the league in assists last year. And
Hmm.
so on top of that, he is now a surefire shooter to hit shots. So I think there is a big potential for problems, but I think these guys are mature enough to handle that. I think Russell Westbrook, as we know him as a ball heavy guy, like he wants the ball, especially last season, he really didn't have anybody to work with. Now in season before, he had some people, but not to the level of a James Harden. Like he had Victor Oladipo, but not to the level where Victor Oladipo is now. And so now you've got this former MVP on your team that you can pass to that will hit shots, and and they're gonna have to work it out. But I still think there's camaraderie there. I never saw
Yeah.
any bad tension in between Russell Westbrook and James Harden. The big tension was really between Katie and Russell, and so um, I think it's a great fit. It's a better fit because CP3's gone. I think it's a better fit for them because Russell Westbrook is way more explosive. Now
Hmm.
he's got to stop shooting as many threes because of his historically bad shooting year. But the good thing is he doesn't have to shoot that many because he has James Harden. So there's a lot
He's
of
going to be more of
weaknesses.
he's probably going to be more of a catch and shoot shooter in
Right.
this in this type of system.
There's a lot of weaknesses that Russell Westbrook has that James Harden makes up for,
Yeah.
and something that Russell Westbrook didn't really have back in OKC. So I think it's a really good fit for him. Uh, I don't think it makes a difference in the long run of the West, who is now bolstered in seemingly every team. No, that's an exaggeration, but so many teams have now been bolstered because of this now two superstar system that I love.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, the
but
league is a lot more balanced now.
right, there's a lot more balance on the West side now. The East is very weak now, as it seems as they were building up, and then a lot of their stars just went out, with the exception of Brooklyn. Um,
Yeah.
so it's interesting. Um, I think it will work, but I do still think that there's potential risk factors. They've got to keep a level head. They have to keep their composure, be mature about it, be teammates, and play with each other and know what's best for them to win. So
Yeah. And Savon, with this for Houston, I mean, like, they obviously have the disappointing game six loss when Durant's not there. Um, Harden talks about in the post game, I know what we need. Um, and Daryl Morey, he's never been one shy of making aggressive trades. This one is right up there with some of the most aggressive trades he's made. But like we saw, there was kind of a diminishing, element to Chris Paul's game, especially the second year with Houston, where the first year, I mean, it was seamless transition, 65 and 17. But we saw, things kind of collide with him and Harden. So what do you think about it from the Rockets' perspective? Because obviously they get an upgrade at the point guard position, but now they're kind of, is this going to make them significantly better than where they were last year?
I was going to make them better, but coming from the GM standpoint, where they not get rid of, but transition a older point guard, which kind of mellowed them out in their offense. Transition, bring a younger prime player in there who can slash and do a little more on the defensive side of Chris Paul, and you get that big contract they just had. So you do get rid of some first round picks, 2 of them. You get rid of a big contract.
And they get the pick swaps.
It levels the playing field for both teams. But I think OKC will probably benefit more down the road. Now, for point guard to point guard, I do agree in some points that he'll be more a fresher, more quicker, elusive point guard that, frankly, Houston haven't seen or had in a long, long time since back in the day with Stephen Francis.
Yeah,
Steve Francis.
Good Steve Francis. Wow.
Yeah, went back old school for that, and then you transition into that. But I do think that 2 ISO players on a team that doesn't run many plays is going to be extremely a big problem for them. And Westbrook struggles at the 3-point line. He's only shot what people said from the field, so he has to take better shot selection. I understand that he was the top assist player of the entire NBA. That's cool. That's good. But when it counts the most, he still has a shot.
Yeah.
And then so I like the pick and roll game that will kind of spruce up.
Their pick and roll game is going to be fantastic.
It's going to be fantastic with Westbrook and Clint Capella. But I still think Mike has to take control because I think those egos will collide. Because Paul George is a different type of player. He's not a player that's going to talk much. He's going to do his play on the field. But James Harden is a vocal player. And we saw that with him and CP3 and that type. And Russell is a vocal player as well. If he doesn't get his way, he doesn't like things, he's going to act in a certain way. So
that was what was different with George. Russell was George okay, I'll actually kind of take a backseat to you because you're not going to force the issue.
Right, exactly. So he got a mellow player. Now you have a player that has the ball and 75% of the offense. And you have another player God who wants the same thing. Now you just have to whose role is what. And I think that's going to be difficult for Mike, especially when they don't run an offense.
Yeah, and with this, I mean, they still have, they still really kind of have their core like Capella, PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon, and now I think the depth factor that's kind of a question. Is there another player you think because obviously Andre Iguodala has been mentioned as a guy they would like to go after, and then they picked up Tyson Chandler. Is there another piece in terms of a bench guy that they should get, or do you think they're just kind of roll because they brought back Austin Rivers? Do you think they'll just kind of roll out the same amount of depth that they had last year?
I think their bench was okay last year. I think they re-signed Green as well. Re-signed Austin Rivers, House. We got Tyson or Chandler or whatever his name is. But it depends on if and Eric Gordon is shooting well. It all depends on that because those are the shooter guys. Because James Harden is going to penetrate and is going to leave the shooters open. I think PJ best corner 3 guy in the NBA. That's his sweet spot. So if he's hitting, he's on, then the offense is going to flourish. It's going to be the same way with Eric Gordon. If he's shooting well, then now I think the upside, you have 2 slides the court. Because James can slash, James can move with basketball. And I think Westbrook can too. But it's a point where how they balance that out, who has the ball, when and where, who has the last shot, who does this and that. They do have some active guys who can run. Their transition of basketball is going to be phenomenal because Russ will run, James will run, and big fella Clint Capella can run. So
Yeah.
I think in that aspect, I think it's gonna be perfect for him. But the bench is fine. I think if there is a couple shooters that can come in and play basketball, if Austin Rivers is healthy, he comes out and shoots some buckets as well as Green. So it's just the starting five has to be crisp this year because there's a new guy in there and they have to build that chemistry fast.
So,
Yeah. Go
so
ahead.
in addition, Russell Westbrook needs to realize that James Harden is the best player on that team, and he's got to get that in his head. He has to. James Harden is the key to that team, but also something, and I like that you mentioned Andre Iguodala. They need to pick him up. Why? Because he's a veteran championship winner, and he knows how to get there, and he knows how to build his team to get there. And he would do so much, not even just for the starters, but for that bench to teach them when crunch time comes, this is how we play and this is how we act, and to keep their poise because he's been there. He was there for years with Warriors and then won championships with them. So he's a veteran, but he's also a championship winner, and they need that on that team because they don't have that. They don't have that guy on the team that has been there multiple times before that can guide them to get there. That has been in the league for a long time, and that's well respected.
Yeah, and I think before we move on, I think one of the interesting things, Avon, is Westbrook was given the choice between Houston and Miami, and like with Miami, you're in a weaker conference. You play with Jimmy Butler, and maybe they could have made like a
That's
run
why
at least being yeah
it won't
a
work.
top
That would have bombed
exactly. It
because
would have
Jimmy
been
Butler and
combustible.
Russell Westbrook's egos.
Yeah, it would have been combustible. Like, do you think it was like just the reuniting with Harden, like that was just like why he was like, okay, like even though I'm no longer going to be like the center of like the culture for this team, like I was in OKC all these years, at least I know I got a familiar face a guy who like I built up a really good rapport with.
Yeah, I mean
I've,
that'll do
uh,
it for you. That
was that a
should
question
be
posed
able
to
to.
me or
Yeah, it's you. So
Oh, my bad.
I mean anybody can chime in.
uh we have to first Russell Westbrook is a competitor, so he wants to be in a place we continue to compete. The West is the biggest right now, the biggest competing with teams with Denver, Lakers now, Clippers. He wanted to go where he can still compete and be a championship contender. Now, the Heat has a long way to go just with Jimmy. If they get Chris Paul, it might look better on
Just a
paper.
little.
I don't know when it comes, but but he's a competitor. And then wanting to play with James Harden because they did have a nice chemistry when he was there, when he came off the bench. They did
Right.
have a nice chemistry. But it's just the opportunity to play with a team that continues to go deep into the playoffs. And yeah, they fall short to the Warriors, but I think he wants to get to a point where he can go further. And I
He
mean,
wants to play
Houston
the
is the
Warriors again
best
in the
option for him.
playoffs. Okay, I mean
Yeah,
it hasn't happened in
it's the
26
best.
since 2016.
It's the best opportunity for him to get to that point.
Yeah. And now transitioning to Chris Paul, obviously like the two teams that have been mentioned as like possible destinations for him are the Heat and the Lakers, and it seems as though like Miami's probably like the more likely fit because now there's the news that, which I don't know what you think about this, Savon, but LeBron's gonna be starting at point guard, and I mean I feel like the only reason the Lakers would make the decision is because they've got Rondo and Alex Caruso, guys like they really wouldn't trust as much to fill that role, and now LeBron can do that. But with Chris Paul, it's either the Miami or the Lakers. Like in terms of his career now, because like he's 34, um, he still wants to be in a competitive environment. Do you think just teaming up with Jimmy in Miami would be just kind of because like the Heat organization, I mean, they're a first class organization. He's going to play for a great coach in Spoelstra and Pat Riley in their front office does a really good job of taking care of players when they get down the latter years of their prime. Do you guys like out of the two teams, like which one do you think would be a better fit?
I'll let you go first.
I mean, there's this dynamic with the Lakers that um, it's a close friend with LeBron, and
Right.
if LeBron wants him, most likely he'll go get him. But the seemingly more plausible fit is a Heat. Now there's also rumors about the Pistons and the Magic, and I think the Timberwolves as well.
Yeah,
But
even Minnesota. Yeah.
even Minnesota, yeah, which that would kind of be intriguing as well. But with that fit in Miami, is you really did mention it, Spoelstra. Ever since the LeBron era, he has kind of fallen off the radar, but he's still a great coach.
Yeah.
And you have to recognize that. And Hall of Famer Pat Riley's there as well. So he knows how to treat players and treat players well. He did it with Shaq when he was there, and Dwayne Wade when they won that championship in '06. So he knows how to deal with players like this. But I mean, I've been a fan of Chris Paul for a long time, but it seems as he's gotten older, he's kind of got this ego around him that kind of makes him hostile to some other players, and he needs to keep that in check. Now I
Mhm.
realize that he's a great player, most likely Hall of Fame player, even without a championship, and I think he should go for a championship. And that's why if I were him, I would try to team up with my guy LeBron because the Lakers are championship contenders this year, and
Yep.
you're not getting any younger. You know, you're 34. It's not gonna you can't wait anymore. You have to go and get it. And so, eh, if I were him, I'd pick the Lakers. But it seems more plausible to pick Miami. It seems kind of easier. Again, the East is now, as it seemed as if they were getting stronger, they got a lot weaker. And so, um, maybe that Jimmy Butler Chris Paul tandem could be enough. I don't think it is. I mean, uh, you still have the Bucks, even the Toronto while they're weakened. You've got Brooklyn. You got all these teams to deal with in the East if you're the Heat. And
Yeah.
um, if I were him, it's championship or bust. Like, what's gonna make your legacy? Are you gonna be known as one of those on the edge Hall of Famers, and you're on the edge simply because you couldn't win a championship, or are you gonna get one
And maybe
and
the Lakers
go
are just holding. Maybe the Lakers just made the proclamation that LeBron's going to be starting at point guard because they didn't know if they could get a guy like Chris Paul yet. Like maybe that was like the reason they
right?
did that, and they're just waiting out for to get a guy like Chris Paul.
And that's the guy they need. Is one of those besides Rajon Rondo. Now, I was watching First Take, and Ryan Hollins is quickly becoming the Skip Bayless of
It's insane.
sportscasters, talking about how Rondo is better than the Chris Paul. Give me a break, man. Like, there is in no way has Rajon Rondo ever been better than the Chris Paul. And especially even his argument that Rondo's healthy and Chris Paul isn't. Even as Chris Paul injured, he's probably still better than Rajon Rondo right now. And so it's bogus that you would say that. But imagine having two veteran point guards on that team, helping
I
out
mean,
guys
high
like
IQ guys.
Alex
Yeah.
Caruso, um, and building up these guys. It will be a loaded veteran squad. And what happens when you have some veterans on their team, such as the likes of Rondo, Paul, and James? You win championships. It happens. That's why I mean the Spurs for so long have been able to be who they were and holding the records for consecutive playoff appearances and 51 seasons because they had veterans on their team that knew what they were doing. And so this is just another one of those things. Um, Chris Paul, go to the Lakers. It's the best fit for you. You're not getting any younger. You should do that. But it seems as if the Heat are the likeliest option at the moment.
Yeah. Um. So, what team do you kind of think? Because obviously, like we see with the Lakers, they're championship contenders. Would you like agree with Micah that the Heat they're just kind of like the more plausible kind of location for him?
It's the only location for him besides
Yeah.
OKC because the Lakers don't have any money. They have what $3.3 million before they hit the
I mean,
132 what
Minnesota is
point
another
six
option.
three
Yeah.
Minnesota, but I don't think he fits in Minnesota. I don't think he fits in that team and what they do with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. Those guys. I don't think he fits into that young, that young man's game, as a couple of announcers would say. But Miami is his best choice because they get back to two first round picks for Chris Paul. And one, Lakers don't have anybody to give for Chris, and they can't take on his contract.
Yeah.
The only team that has the money or the cap space to do so is Miami, and he'll be with Jimmy Butler. And their lineup is not enticing with the first glance, but they can make it work with Chris and the
I
type
mean,
of game.
look,
They'll
But
slow
they
it down a
probably
little
have to
bit.
give up Justice Winslow
because
as
they
one
don't
one of their young
even
key
have Hassan
guys.
Whiteside anymore. They don't
Yeah,
have a Hassan Whiteside, so that big man presence is severely lacking. That's something that has been saving them for a while. So, I mean, and I agree with you. The cap space is a huge issue, and so that's why it's very unlikely for him to go to the Lakers. But if I were him, I'd try to get there somehow. But I do agree that, I mean, the Lakers went all out to get the players that they've gotten, and so it just seems interesting. It's I don't think they're gonna make a splash. I mean, it looks very predictable that he'll end up there. Now, you even have to remember, I mean, Chris or Pressey said they're in no rush to trade Paul. He could still stay with the Thunder. I don't see that happening in the long run, but I still think most of the season, Chris Paul is going to be in OKC. I believe Pressey when he says that. I mean, he's got a huge amount of draft picks to. I mean, he has 8 first-round draft picks he's gotten in the trades from Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and Jeremy Grant.
yeah,
So he's got future. He's future thing that he's got to work with. And although Chris Paul may not want this, um, a veteran player to build up younger players is exactly what you need. Um, so it'll be interesting. I agree. He'll probably be in Miami at some point, but I don't think it'll be as soon as we're talking that it's going to be.
yeah. I mean, I would definitely agree with that. With the Heat, it's like they offer this just a more logical um option in terms of you pair up with Jimmy Butler and they're gonna take better care of you in your career, and you're not having to like go to a young team like Minnesota. Like
Mm.
Miami's still a competitive team in the East, even though like there are a few teams. You got Milwaukee, Philly as kind of the clear cut top 2 teams there, but I would say Miami's kind of the more the better option for him. And as we were talking about with OKC, you know, they're not gonna have 15 first round picks in the next 7 drafts pretty much. And what like the in terms of having the future, they have probably the brightest future in the league in terms of all the assets that they accumulate and what they can do with them.
Yeah,
Say
got to make those picks though.
yeah,
You got to
no,
get good
oh yeah,
players.
oh yeah. I mean, what I'm saying is the potential that they hold in terms of their future. It's not a guarantee. But Savon, in terms of what OKC has accumulated in terms of giving up George, giving up Westbrook. What are your thoughts on how just kind of how Sam Presti was still able to get still build up a chance for them to kind of have a bright future, even though they lose their 2 cornerstones.
I think the league is transitioning back into the young man's game and rebuilding. A lot of teams that are rebuilding and getting away from big 3. I think OKC went through a transition of having a 2-man wall, having 3 players with Harden, then trading him over, and then having a two guy with KD and Russ, and then it was Russ and Victor Oladipo. Then they tried the big 3 again, and then now they transition into okay, well, let's just rebuild all together. Let's go get some draft picks. Let's get some other guys in who can keep us mellow and transition us, keep us in the running, but not, try to go all out for big time players like a Jimmy Butler or, just clean house and rebuild and get some young guys in here that we have longevity with. I think that's what the league is transitioning to. But it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to take a while for them to build to that top tier team they used to be when KD was there, when him and Russ had that chemistry that no one could break it, but them, but them. But it's going to take a while. It's going to take some patience. It's going to be like the Lakers did when a lot of guys left after they won the championships. Kobe was still there, but they were in a transition period, bringing younger guys in like Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle,
Yeah.
Caldwell Pope. There's a lot of teams that they're going back and building instead of trying to go after these big name guys who are in the latter years of their career. So the OKC is on a different wave, and I like where they're going. 11 years, no championships. We've been there. We lost 3. Team came back from 3-1. Let's do something different. Let's get some young guys in here Let's do it the right way. Yeah, I like it. It mixes things up.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And Micah, just like you said, like they have to get the right players. Um, and in terms of when we remember just kind of the run that, or maybe just the 2 year run George and Westbrook were on, like when they lost to Portland in that series, like did you feel as though like they're gonna come back and try to make another run at it, or did you feel as though they kind of like just reached their ceiling because after 2 years, I mean, back to back first round exits and that just wasn't
Hmm.
what was expected with those two.
I do think that they reached their ceiling. It was in a way, uh, their kind of goal was okay. We're gonna bring Paul George in, and we're gonna be championship contenders. We're gonna contend because we have these two studs, and Paul George and Russell Westbrook, and then we see the powerhouse that was Golden State, and it seemed as if even during this postseason, it seemed as if the Warriors' run was going to come to an end. But then you have everything that happened in the offseason with AD going to LA, um, and the Clippers being really hyped, and the Jazz bolstering themselves up, and all these teams that have made money moves and made really really good moves, and it seems as if I were them, it seems as if, you know, maybe if there weren't that many moves, then maybe they would try to keep. Because maybe, okay, these moves happening, there's a lot of flux. The balance of power in the West is shaken right now. But then all these people come out and going to the Western Conference and making these teams kind of scary good. And
Hmm.
so it seems as in the eyes, their run was over. Like they cannot compete with these teams that have made these moves, um, and so in an attempt to kind of rescue themselves before it gets really bad, they get these draft picks, and it was a smart move. It's a really smart move by Presti because in no way in the world were they gonna beat beat the Lakers this season or beat Portland or beat Utah. Um, and now obviously the Clippers as well. And so they had to find something to get out of their flux, and we have had Russell Westbrook for all this time. We've had this chance with Paul George, but we just couldn't do it. We couldn't get over this hump. So now we've got to think about the future because in the now, ain't no way in the world they're gonna get anywhere. It wasn't gonna happen, even if they kept Paul George Westbrook. It wasn't gonna happen. So you free up cap space, you get a lot of young future prospects that they can really build off of and build their scouting and build their future off these young players. And so it's a smart move, and I applaud them for it. And now it's gonna hurt now. It really will because of all the stacked teams that are in the West now. Um, it's gonna hurt them now, but man, their future's so bright. So it's a
Yeah, catch
fantastic
22.
GMing by Presti, fantastic, and people could be scratching their heads like you just traded your two best players, but he knows what he's doing, and I
Setting up for the
agree
future.
wholeheartedly with it.
Yeah, I would agree too. Um, Transitioning to the Clippers, they Kawhi goes there. They decide to go there after one of the most dramatic free agency decisions. After almost every other day, it was just like, okay, he's gonna stay in Toronto, and then it's like, no, he's gonna build a super team with LeBron and AD, and then
Yeah.
uh, Friday night, um, or I mean, honestly, I guess you could say early Saturday morning, when the news comes out that he chooses the Clippers, and then the Clippers also acquire George in a trade because that he was heavily recruiting George to come with him, which nobody knew. I mean, there was the report of him recruiting KD, but nobody really knew about the Paul George factor and what Kawhi was able to do as a recruiter successfully. And the Clippers, they gave off pretty much one of the biggest trade packages in terms of all the draft picks that they give off,
Mm.
and and trading away Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Gallinari. But Michael, what were your initial, I mean, thoughts on the move? I mean, first of all, Kawhi's move, He chooses to go to the Clippers. Everything that they have, it just makes sense. Like Savon, we were talking about a couple of weeks ago that you felt as though, okay, the clear basketball move is just go to the Lakers with LeBron and AD. And I always felt as though the Clippers organization, the coach that they had, just the defensive presence, the prowess they had, which they showed against the first round, and the Warriors when they pushed them to 6 when KD was healthy, and that was like extremely impressive. And I just felt as though if they just add one more star, like they're going to be like a legit problem. But Michael, what are your thoughts on what the Clippers did and how the team is stacked with now Kawhi and PG, two of the best two players in the league?
I have never seen such a successfully secretive free
Yeah,
agency from such a big name player. Now, all along, I was 100% sold on him going to Clippers. And I told you, when I found out, I texted you and I said, I told you so.
Yeah, you
Because
did.
everybody was coming
You
out.
never
The
wavered.
Clippers were the dominant team for a while, and then they kind of faded, and it was like, well, the Lakers, and maybe he'll stay in Toronto, and then the Lakers really got heated up. There were some apparent tweets by Woj that Lakers were in the running, but I think that was kind of fake and forged, and and so all these people started jumping on the Lakers train, and I can't remember who it was, but he said 99% he's going to the Lakers, and I'm like, you're 99% wrong, and and so when he
Yeah,
went
Jalen
there,
Rose. Yeah.
yeah, Jalen Rose, that's right, and I was like, man, I knew it, and then I saw also Paul George goes, I'm like, whoa, hold up,
That
like
was
that's
just the most
crazy.
stunning. I don't think I've ever
It's
been
so
as stunned.
secretive, and I
Yeah,
love
for
it.
sure.
I
Yeah,
love it.
he fooled us all.
And so they are the best defensive team in this league has seen for a while. Why? You've got Patrick Beverly, who's one of the best defensive point guards in the league. You
Mm.
have a former defensive player of the year, and you have a guy who's been in the defensive player of the year, and Paul George now, in the running. So that's your starting three of your starting five are premier defenders that can also do offense. And it's so
It's
nice.
insane.
And also, they have the best 2 6 men in the league, in Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams. And you also have Landry Shamet, who has really kind of stepped up his game, especially in that playoff series. So you have one of the best benches in the league. So sure, you give up Alexander and you give up Gallinari,
Yeah,
but
but look who they
man,
kept.
that price to pay is so minor compared to what they got. They
Exactly.
are scary. They're going to finish in the top two in the West, guaranteed. And they're going to at least get to the conference finals because people are like, but it's the Clippers. But now some of them have playoff experience against a healthy Warriors team that it took to 6. But now they have two guys that have been there before. You have a championship winner in Kawhi who's won it in two separate places in two different countries, you know, and so he knows what to do to get there to drive his team to a seemingly unlikely place. He bolstered himself above the Bucks, who are the best team in the league the whole season. So man, they're a scary team. They really are, and it's exciting. And Kawhi Leonard, he's going to be the MVP running again. They've got 3 potential Defensive Player of the Year candidates. Their bench
Yeah.
is deep because they have the most improved, or yeah, they have two best 6 men of the year, the 6 man of the year, and then a runner-up in Montrezl Harrell. You've got all these pieces to work with, and so they
Kawhi not only won the finals and the finals MVP, he also won the offseason. I mean, he just
definitely won the offseason. He's just that kind of player, and it's going to cement him in history as one of the greatest of all time. He can be that, and I mean the Clippers are exciting. They are the best team in LA right now.
Mhm.
I don't care if you've got AD and LeBron James. You're the best team because they have the most complete team. They have the best defensive team in the league, and that sells them already. And so it's going to be exciting to now finally have an LA battle for once.
Yeah.
That okay, they can battle not only for the best team in LA, but the best team in the league, and it's going to be exciting.
And the thing, and Savon, with this, I mean, obviously, the tandem with LeBron and AD is, you know, one of the best, if not the best tandem in the league. And then you look at what the Clippers have in terms of, getting Kawhi and Paul George and the bench, having one of the bolstering, arguably the best bench in the league. What they were able to do in terms of pushing Golden State. In terms of just what they've been able to do, and maybe you think otherwise with the Lakers in terms of them being the best team in LA. Like what are your thoughts on what the Clippers have done in terms of just constantly being a competitive playoff team? Now they land the big splash and getting two stars.
Oh, well, I thought it was a great move by the Clippers part. I don't think it was a great move by Kawhi to give Kawhi so much praise
Wow.
about this secretive move, but they kind of killed LeBron James' image when he did it to a team that was 145 games, had an injured Dwayne Wade, brought Chris Bosh over there, of course, but Chris Bosh went to a different position and type player. They didn't have a bench. Haslam was kind of washed up. They said he had Chalmers. Chalmers wasn't good until LeBron over there. Mac Miller wasn't good until LeBron came over there. It was a difference. I think it's a lot of hypocrisy, to be honest. There's a lot of double standard when it comes to
Well,
Kawhi.
he's benefiting from what LeBron started.
Yeah, but then he's not getting the backlash that LeBron had. So I don't think he's
Wasn't a
this
trio
image
though.
of. It wasn't a trio, but you might as well say it was a trio because look at what the Clippers done without that. They had one guy injured. They won about 40, 49, 50 games.
49 games.
Took a great team to Game 6 with Lou Williams playing in the starting lineup. Then you take Paul George, you get Kawhi, and you take him over there. Now, if Kawhi went to the Lakers, it would have just been those three, but they would have an extremely tough bench, and I think it would still would have the equivalence of him going to the Clippers. Now, besides
Mm.
that point, I do think they are the best team in the West right now because Klay Thompson is hurt. Some of
Mm.
their players are not there. Sean Livingston's gone. Iguodala is gone. Quinn Cook is gone. They did re-sign a couple of players, but it's not the team that they used to be because now the pieces are crumbling a little bit. They do get D'Angelo Russell, but I don't think that's enough to say they're the best in the West now. I do think the Clippers are the best in the West, but I'm not on the Kawhi Leonard board of him being a Saint because he quote unquote balanced the league again. Pish posh, Oscar gosh, go kill yourself.
I, I
Mic
will
drop.
say, I will
Boom.
say, he got plenty of backlash when he left the Spurs.
Yeah.
Plenty, especially as a
That's
Spurs fan.
different.
Comes
You
out against
That's
the
know,
different.
situation.
you know the
That
backlash that he has.
was
There
that
is
was
no
different.
reason for him to get backlash right now.
Yes, it
He
Yeah,
did
this
what
is
he
is.
like the
set out
most
to do
innocent
in
move.
Toronto.
You
He
left.
gave them a
You left a
championship.
team that you won a championship with for
Yeah,
a
It never was
better
his choice to go there.
situation.
but
That's what you.
but hold up,
But
you
that's the
knew
same exact thing, though.
as a Raptors fan in the GM, as a GM,
You knew there
as
was
a
a
front
strong
office,
possibility he
and
wouldn't come
as
back.
you knew the very massive likely possibility that he was only going to be there for 1 year.
Yeah.
And so I would be mad if he kind of tanked the team, but he gave them a championship. He gave this team, this country, something to be prideful about for a year
Oh
at least.
gosh, let me give
And
you one
so,
of these.
and
Yay!
look,
Playing the
I
world's
am a
smallest
I
violin for Kawhi Leonard.
dude,
Yay!
I am not a Kawhi fan. Trust me. He was this loyal to my team. Okay?
He
Nobody
was not
else has
disloyal
wanted
to
to
your
leave.
team. Your
Oh,
team
please.
gave bad reports on him. He
Are you
got a
kidding
better
me? You're talking
look.
about the Spurs like that? Come on, they're the most trusted team in the league. Come
Oh
on.
God, it's
The
when it
Dwight's
only
comes
going
guy who
in.
has
down to the
ever
team
the
doctors. When it
only
comes down
the
to the
only
team
guy
doctors, they're a part of the team. They're a part of the organization. So if the
yeah.
owner says get him back in there, they're going to try everything in their possible in their worst comes to get him back. Andrew Iguodala exposed that with the
With
Warriors.
Durant.
That's why they brought KD back too early. He had a more severe injury than they thought, and then he ended up doing something worse. Andre Iguodala did the same thing. He was hurt. They was like, "When you got to come back?" They were telling him this, and it was really that. I think Kawhi Leonard got a better doctor to look at him. He wasn't healthy. He didn't want to risk anything, so he sat out. And that organization turned their back
Oh
on
my
Kawhi Leonard.
goodness.
The coach turned their back on Kawhi Leonard. The players
Oh
turned their
my
back on
goodness.
Kawhi Leonard.
You're
Come on
talking like
now.
Ryan Hollins and Skip Bayless right now. Come on.
They did turn their back on him. And Skip
There's only
Bayless is the
been one
biggest
person.
Spurs
There's
fan
only
in
been
America.
one person in this whole century since the beginning of 2000 that has vocally wanted to leave the Spurs, and that was LaMarcus Aldridge. And Greg Popovich was had to get his mind around that LaMarcus Aldridge has been in the league for a while, and so he let him play this game. And look where he is right now. He's still with us. So don't tell me that my team, that Greg Popovich, that Ryan Buford, that the front office of the Spurs are
They gave up on
enough to
Kawhi
not listen
Leonard.
to
Let's
their
call a
players.
spade.
They
They
are
gave
the
up on
most
Kawhi Leonard because he wanted to come back
well-respected
when they wanted him
organization.
to. He wanted to come back on his own terms when he was 100% healthy. They thought he was. He knew he knows his own body.
I'm
He
just gonna
got
tell
other
you.
doctors to
I'm just
look
gonna
at
tell
that.
you.
That organization gave up on Kawhi, and he gave another team a
Who was paying
championship.
him? Who was paying him? The Spurs. They have an obligation to not only for him but also to that team and to the fans. And if they don't feel that he is ready, I'm the one paying him. And I'm not going to waste my money. And I want him to get back healthy. It's not like they didn't want their best player in the face of the
There
franchise
was a bridge.
not in the game.
No,
Trust was lost.
you're
Trust was
twisting
lost.
that backwards. Kawhi didn't want to come back. The Spurs
Yeah.
wanted him to come back. Kawhi didn't want to come back.
Kawhi didn't want to come back because he didn't trust the team doctors, which
Exactly.
has been
You just said something totally different. Like the team
which
wanted
has
him
been the
back, but
most
they held him out. No,
respected
the team wanted him back.
organization in NBA. The most respected organization, regardless of my bias.
Oh God, it's still
Look,
a
man,
business.
Savon.
It's still a business.
I need to let you know something. Whenever you like just slightly attack the Spurs, this is what will happen.
Of
Like,
course,
I will come
the
after
Spurs
you.
is like Jesus or something.
I will.
It's still
I will
a business at the end of the day.
But
Them
the
team
reason why
doctors are getting paid by the Spurs. If the owner of the Spurs say, "Look, get Kawhi back. I don't care what you got to do." It's a business. This is a business. They're
I'm
losing
fully
money.
aware
They're
this is a
losing
business.
tickets. Well, evidently you don't, because if you believe the Spurs is such a great organization that they don't do
you don't
bad
believe they're a
deals
great
or anything,
organization?
no, because it's still a
Oh,
business
wow.
at the end of the day. It's still a business.
I want you to
They
ask
need to make
every
their money.
businessman that
If
is in
Kawhi
NBA
Leonard is
front.
not on the court, they don't sell tickets. If Kawhi Leonard's not on the court, they don't win basketball games. So if the team doctor is
I'm
told,
sorry, we almost beat a Denver Nuggets team this year. That's fine.
almost doesn't count. Almost doesn't count. You lost.
With a severely depleted
You
lineup,
lost.
yeah, it is. Because
They
so
lost.
hold up.
I don't want to hear
You're
any
talking about that this
excuses.
is a business,
The
right?
Spurs lost. The Spurs lost.
I want you to go around
Now,
to
did
every
the Spurs
front
lose
office.
or did they not lose?
Yeah,
did they lose?
And every
They
team but
lost.
one loses.
They lost.
Every
They
team
lost.
but one.
Well, let's see. Come on, get
So,
back under
how
control, because
about-
he's
okay,
going.
I'm gonna-
Spurs
okay.
or whatever.
Hold
They
on,
turn it back
let me
on.
finish this. I want you to
All
go ask every front office in the league and ask them what they think about the Spurs.
There's
If
no
it's
way I
truly
can do
business,
that. There's no way
they
I can
are
do
the
that.
most well-respected organization in the NBA
Oh,
of what
God.
they've done for their players and how
What
loyal
they've
they are
done
to
for
their
their play. Well,
players.
evidently
And how-
they missed one. They missed one.
Nah.
They missed one.
Missed a huge one.
No.
A huge one.
The thing is, with the Spurs, we're fine. You're like, sure, we would have won more games with him, and that's obvious. But it's not like
there is another team, Savon. There is another team that just lost out on Kawhi. Okay,
Right.
the Raptors. The Raptors are left with the aftermath of of not having their Finals MVP. I mean, I think this is the first. I can't think of another time when a Finals MVP leaves the year after. And this is kind of unprecedented, but we also knew like this was a possibility. And they still have Lowry, Gasol, Ibaka, and Siakam, and now they're in a position where they're still a competitive team, but obviously they're not in the top tier of the East anymore. In terms of what Masai Ujiri, like, you feel as though he should do or will do you think he'll just kind of try to like still stay competitive as they're quote unquote defending their crown, or do you feel as though he'll just try to kind of tear it down and build for the future, kind of just like how Sam Presti decided to do?
They're gonna keep it on ice right now. I think they're gonna still ride that wave they have right now, coming off winning the championship. Yes, they don't have Kawhi Leonard anymore, who is a big part of that, but they do still have some special pieces in Van Fleet, Marcus Gasol, Serge Ibaka. Maybe Jeremy Lin steps up. Kyle Lowry played lights out. He played like a better Kyle Lowry that we've seen in the regular season that transitioned to the postseason. It took a while, but he did it. They still have some bright spots. They have some young guys coming in there. I like Chris Boucher. There's a couple other guys I can't think of right now, but I think they keep it on ice. I think they try to assess what they are when the season starts, or when the preseason starts, to see where they are as a team. But they won't trade. They won't do anything until next season. until they have some unrestricted free agents or they have some people that want to trade.
Yeah. Um, and and Micah, and with just in terms of Siakam, like how big of the how big of like kind of a jump do you? Because I mean, obviously he was um most he was the most improved player
Hmm.
in the league this year, and he's gonna kind of be like the young cornerstone for this team. Like in terms of a
Right.
player, whether it be him or another guy, like who do you think has to kind of step up the most in terms of like one of their younger guys who's gonna be here for a while?
Oh, it absolutely has to be him. I mean,
Yeah,
as you are the most improved, and Kyle Lowry, Marcus Gasol, they're not getting any younger, and neither is Jeremy Lin. Now, they're right now one of those teams that can still go deep in the playoffs because of their depth. Now I know they
yeah,
lost Danny
for sure.
Green, I know they lost Kawhi, but they still have Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, who went lights out in the postseason, and Marcus Gasol, and so I like Mashai Ujiri's loyalty to this team. He had a huge offer to go elsewhere to Washington, yet he stayed with this team because he knows he still has something there, but he's able to work around it if they can't win right now. So there's a lot of prospects for the Raptors and it's very promising, but Pascal Siakam has to be their cornerstone. I think and he's got a great teacher in the post play and transitioning to be an outside shooter in Marcus Gasol. Now Pascal Siakam's obviously much quicker, more dynamic than Marcus Gasol ever was, but he can learn the big man from Marcus Gasol and transitioning to an outside game like he already has an outside game and a big man game. So Pascal Siakam has to be this way. But I will tell you, they probably wouldn't have won as many games without Fred VanVleet. He was one of the most underrated players in the postseason, even though
Yeah,
he was talked about. So Fred VanVleet, he's got to stay this way. Kyle Lowry finally had a great postseason. And contrary to years before, he never showed up in the postseason. He's got to stay this way. So those three players really the key to keeping this franchise alive after the aftermath of the Kawhi leaving. But I think the two most important are Pascal first and Fred VanVleet second, because without those two playing well, there's no way they would have won the championship, even with Kawhi Leonard.
yeah, for sure. Um, Transitioning to just kind of like the overall free agency period. Obviously, ton of big name duos now with Brooklyn, Kyrie, KD, Boston, um, the Lakers, Clippers. I mean, both LA teams. Um, Houston now, really amazing duos for the NBA. But in terms of just kind of like some of the under the radar teams, like Utah, that they get Mike Conley, Bogdanovich, Indiana, they get Malcolm Brogdon, which I felt as though was
Mm-hmm.
a huge pickup. For you guys, like what do you think was kind of like the under the radar signing in terms of a team that really took a step up in terms of being competitive for next year?
Go ahead, Savon.
Under the radar picks, I really didn't really
I
focus
mean,
on.
I
It was
honestly, or I mean, we can just put overall, like what sign, like what team in terms of what they got this offseason just impressed you the most?
I mean, the big time. I'll go with the Pelicans.
Okay,
With the trade they have from
JJ.
with AD, but they got some young guys who can go with young Zion Williams, and then they get a veteran guy who can still shoot some basketball, JJ Redick. And I mean, they have the tools to go win 50 games, at least 50 games.
Wow.
Because I think Zion, if healthy, I think he's going to be a big problem. And we saw Brandon Ingram grow up so much when LeBron James went down. Lonzo's going to come off the injury, ankle injury, but I think Lonzo has a new mindset that will kind of change. Got to change the era with the Pelicans. They got a lot of good pieces, a lot of young pieces. I'm looking forward to them how they gel. Since they're young, I think they'll gel well. Um, but number two would probably have to be when Al Horford went to The
Philly.
76ers, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
like that
getting Josh
move.
Richardson.
Yeah. They got a lot of pieces from Miami. I think that was a good move. They're definitely number one in the East right now with those moves.
That's the
But
thing I
yeah,
was gonna.
Pelicans is the best one.
That was a sub tangent I was gonna get to. So you like Philly more in terms of compared to Milwaukee in the East right now.
I like they picked up the other Lopez brother. I like that. I like that
Yeah,
that
Robin
two head
Lopez,
monster. Yeah, but I'd still give it to
Philly,
Philly. Al Horford with. I
Josh
like the
Richardson.
two big men. I haven't seen two big men in a long time, and now the Lakers have two big men that play really well together when they were at the Pelicans. So I'm old school. I like that. I like I like that type of basketball. You go into the paint and you kind of
And this was
have
the
that
guy who
1-2
gave them
game.
fits all the time with the Celtics.
Yeah,
Like he was
and
like
he
the
can play
neutralizer.
great defense. He makes their defense better, immediately
Yeah,
better. So I mean,
Micah, what team would you kind of give it to in terms of like who impressed you the most in terms of what they got this offseason?
Um, First and foremost, the Clippers, but I think but that's a high profile. I think
Yeah, high
under the radar,
profile
as I
team.
mentioned, was Utah Jazz. I mean, Donovan Mitchell was quite frankly drowning out there with having to do all this load, and now you have a lot of this load taken off by a veteran Mike Conley, who's a lockdown three-point shooter and is a really good defender. And then you add a sharpshooter in Bogdan Bogdanovic. So now you let Donovan Mitchell play his game, and his game's mostly driving. And so he's more of that type of style, and so now he doesn't really have to. He doesn't have to work as hard to be more than what he is. And these two guys will also give him the ability to be able to work on the shot with them. And so um, they're a great team. They also have Rudy Gobert. So they're a fairly solid team. Um, for me, it's Utah, 100%. But while they didn't make moves in Denver, like, please
Denver's
don't
going to be
sleep on
really
those
good.
guys.
They're
Don't
going to be
sleep
really
on
good.
those guys.
Yeah.
They were contending to be the best team in the West all season. They still have that core, and so they're going to be good. And that just adds on to the depth in the Warriors. Now, as Savon mentioned, the Pelicans made a lot of moves. They really did. But right now, a lot of it is it's it's promising. They really can do a lot. I don't know. I don't know if I would go so far as 50 games. I still think they make the playoffs. But in this day, after this free agency, as the West has been bolstered in not just a couple of teams that fight, but now bolstered into many contenders that can do damage. Like, I can see both LA teams getting to the finals. I can see Denver getting to the finals. I can even sometimes see Portland getting there. And even Utah because of
Yeah.
what they've done. So there's a lot of teams that we can see, and the Pelicans, while they're young, they got to develop these young guys. So that's the real key because the other teams that made their big splashes and made their trades, these are guys who have been in the league. And so they've got a great young core, a very promising, and I really hope, they can become a top tier team. Um, and in regards to the East, there's two different dynamics with the Bucks and the 76ers as they battle for the top spot. Because, yes, the 76ers have the best starting lineup, but their bench is nowhere near as deep as the Bucks bench. Once you get past those guys, you've got like Zaire Smith and Mike Scott, and they also just got Raul Neto from Denver. So those are kind of your guys that you're going to on the bench when you guys get tired. But if you look at the Bucks roster, yes, you have Robin Lopez. They got a huge re-signing of George Hill. You've got Pat Connaughton and Ursula Ilyasova, and then you just got Wesley Matthews, who was very inconsistent last year, but in the right setting, he can do what he needs to do. I think they gave him too big of a role in Dallas. He's more of that bench player, role player type, and I think it's a good role for him. They've got a good John Lure and Dante DiVincenzo, and so their bench is better while still also having Giannis, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and Eric Bledsoe. And so there's a different dynamic where 76ers have the best starting lineup, but Bucks by far have the best bench. And so, as we've seen, bench takes you places because the bench has to carry. And in Toronto, their bench did a lot of work that kept them in games and won them games. So it's a different dynamic. For me, I have the Bucks at number one. Bucks are still the number 1 in the power rankings for me. But right behind them is 76ers. It's going to be very close.
Yeah, I have Philly at 1. Like I like what they got in Al Horford, and then you get a two-way
That's a
guy.
scary front court. Scary front court.
Yeah, then you get a two-way guy, and I feel as though this really is, in terms of like Butler, like they were really close, but I think like now you just got like you got it back to the 1-2 and Simmons and Embiid, and then you have all these like really defensive standouts on and you still have Tobias Harris. But yeah, I really think if Philly's gonna get to the final, like this is the year where they really have
this really is. This is their chance.
Yeah. Any other things stand out to you guys in free agency?
I mean, not much. It was just I think some people were just overshadowed because of all that was going on with Kawhi and AD, and I like that the 76ers went and got Josh Richardson. I really like that deal. But my favorite one was Mike Conley going to the Utah Jazz to really just give Donovan Mitchell some like breath, to give him some help in the backcourt, where they had Ricky Rubio and Raul Neto, but they didn't do as much for him as they needed him to do. So.
NBA summer. Most impressive guys, Carson Edwards for the Celtics. Him just being able to score at a rate anytime, even though he's a small guard. He just has that spark plug in terms of scoring that can be really contagious for you. For the Pelicans. He has one of the most polarizing, I guess viral highlights in terms of summer league when he had the dunk over one of the Bulls players, and just bring the summer league guys like which one the most.
I'm gonna go with Brandon Clark. Fittingly, the summer league MVP. He deserved it. I mean, in back-to-back games, he has 16 and 14 rebounds, and as a guy who is veteran at Gonzaga, who carried them a while, even though he went in the second round, I felt that there was something there, and I don't know if you remember what I told you about Carson Edwards, but I said in 3 to 5 years he could be an all-star because of Kemba Walker, and because he can learn from him, and he is such a high-profile scorer, and he just showed that. So I love that draft pickup. That's probably my favorite draft pickup that happened in the draft. Is now you're learning from not Kyrie but Kemba, who's a veteran, a mature veteran, and not even Carson Edwards. But Brandon Clark just really stood out. Like, he did such an amazing job, especially in the playoffs for the Summer League, and really bringing his team down to the stretch. A lot of close games. There was like a 2-point game, a 1-point game, like an 8-point game. But he really carried them along the stretch without Ja Morant doing Summer League for the Grizzlies. So that's a huge pickup for Memphis, and that's a great draft class. So Brandon Clark was the most impressive player of the Summer League because he showed his veteran status. He really did. He showed his experience, he showed his maturity, and he showed the way that he can be composed and play the game well.
I agree. To go with.
What's that?
Just the. I mean, it may have not been one of the, in terms of the guy who was kind of the most consistent for you in Summer League.
Okay, you're going, and I think I heard the question.
Yeah, he like the most impressive, consistent in the Summer League.
I like Tyler Hero from Miami.
Yeah.
He's been low on the radar, but he's been scoring buckets. I think he's the type of guy that can really help them at the one or two for Miami. I think he's probably going to be in the starting lineup with Jimmy Butler. If they get Chris, probably move Jimmy to the three, Hero to be the two, and Chris at the one. I think that would be a great lineup with a couple of big men they still have there with Whiteside, I believe. Not a
Mm.
Whiteside, but Winslow. But
Yeah, he
he's
was
shown me
exciting.
that he could put it on the he could put it on the he can create his own shot. He can finish at the rim and he can shoot the lights out. So I think that's a good player to have on your on your team. He's a young guy, but I think he could be more he could be exciting for them, especially with Jimmy, because Jimmy's going to need another guy who can create his own shot, assist, be a facilitator as well as play pretty good defense. So Miami got a steal.
Yeah,
He's
they
going to be a
did.
good kid.
That's a good pick right
Sure.
there. Like he really did jump out and really impressed.
Um, Night, Micah. Thank you for being on once again. The pleasure is always.
Always, yes. Thank you for letting me be on all the time. So I appreciate that.
Post one to Burns on my counterpart. See you later.